Hi, and welcome back to the channel Building Amazing Things. So in today's video, we're going to be looking at baseline grid system. We'll understand what a baseline grid system is, the importance of it, and how to set it up and use it in Figma or any design tool you're using. So in the last video, I introduced what a grid system is, and I majorly talked about column grid system. If you have not watched that video, the link is above here or here. Make sure you watch that video and understand what a grid system is before jumping into what a baseline grid system is. So guys, without wasting much of your time, let's get started. So I've opened my Figma file and I have some notes here which I want to take into consideration before we start designing. We need to understand what a baseline is and also understand what a baseline grid system is. This is what will help us to really understand how to use it and how to set it up in Figma or any design tool we're using. So let's quickly understand what a baseline is. So a baseline is an imaginary line upon which the letters of a typeface sits. And in UI design, we use a text baseline to measure the distance between a text and an element. So I'm going to quickly just show you guys with this letter X, Y, and D, and we'll identify what the baseline is. So if you look at this line here, this is the baseline. If I pull down this line, you will notice that the texts are no longer sitting on the line. So we can say this is a baseline, and I've identified it as the baseline. In UI designs, we can use this to actually measure the distance between two elements. So, but first of all, let's understand what the baseline grid system is. Then I'm going to show you guys how you measure elements using the baseline grid system. So now a baseline grid system is a dense grid of equally spaced horizontal line which help us to determine where text will sit in our design. So a simple example of a baseline grid system is a sheet of ruled paper that we probably used in our high school. And there are various types of baseline grid systems. So in design, there are various baseline grid system. We have majorly the 4 and the 8 pixel baseline grid system. So I'm going to show you guys how to set this up and how to use it. So remember I talked about using the baseline grid system to measure the distance between text and elements in your design. So I'm going to simply turn up the grid system I have here, and I'm using Shift G in Mac. I think that should work for Windows as well. So if you look at this, I've already set up a baseline grid system. If you notice, the texts are perfectly sitting under the baseline, and this helps us to create more readable text and make our designs more appealing and easy to read as well. So if you look at this, right, you could see that the space between the fitness bike, this title here, and the paragraph here, you could see the space. I have identified an arrow here showing that, oh, the space between these two elements is 24 pixel, and the space between each of these row is 16 pixel. So that's the essence of baseline grid system. So if you have a well arranged text or elements in your UI design, it makes the eyes to easily go through those elements without having any issues. So I'm going to show you guys how to set this up and how we can use this in Figma or any design tools. So if you look at what we have here in the previous project, you remember I walked you guys how to use the column grid system. And it is very important to use this because this shows that you're a good UI designer, and these are some of the elements of UI design you need to learn. So looking at this now, we don't have a grid system. If you look at this, we only have the column grid system set up. So I'm going to set this up and you understand how to set up a grid system, a baseline grid system. So I'm going to click on the plus here, and you can see it just added the grid box. And this is not what I want actually. So I'll click on it to format this grid. So I'm going to select the row. Sorry, I selected the column. I'm going to select the rows, and what I can do here, I can set to any number of rows depending on the artboard or the size of this or the size of the screen which you're designing for. So this artboard, right? I can say let me have 100 rows. You could decide to have as many number of rows you want to, but I usually go for 3,000 rows because depending on any size of the artboard, I think 3,000 rows will be okay for me. So once I've set this to 3,000 rows, what I can do next is, okay, what type of row? I want it to start from the top, and this is it perfectly. So the height of this row, I'm going to set it to 8. Now, the essence of setting it to 8 is because I want to use the 8th grade baseline grade system. Remember, I said there are various types of baseline grade system, the 8 and the 4. So depending on what you want to achieve, for UI design, it's usually advisable you use 4. For bigger web designs like magazines, you can use 8. But I'm going to use 4 for this project. And I'll set the height to 4. And I'm going to leave the offset to 0. Then I don't want any gutter space in between them. So I'm going to set this to 0. And if you look, you could identify some of these lines. Look at the line. And the space between each of these lines, it's 4. So if you make yours 8, then each of the space within the lines will be 8. Within the baselines will be 8. And we'll quickly set up all our UI elements to match on this line. And that's the importance of using baseline grid system. So now, one thing I don't like with this baseline grid system is the color. You can leave it to be red, but I usually use one pattern of color for the boat. So what I'm going to do for the column, I'll just click on the column and copy the color there, and go to the row and paste the color there as well. Good, I have the same similar color. I think this is better. I like using similar colors. So basic grid system, once you set it up, you have the red color, and that is it. So we are going to work with this grid system. So, but before that, I want to set up something. And what I can do now, I'm using the Shift J to turn off the grid system. I can use the Shift J again to actually show the grid system. You can use the eyes here to easily turn on and turn off the grid system. So let me quickly turn off this grid system. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to preferences here and go to nudge amount. So the nudge amount help me to snap things to certain spaces or pixels. So once I click on this nudge amount, there are two options, the small nudge and the big nudge. So with the small nudge, you can move elements to snap to 1%. And the big nudge, you can move elements to snap to 8 pixel. Sorry, 1 pixel and 8 pixel. So for the small nudge, you use the arrow up and down to actually move things to 1 pixel. And for the big nudge, you use shift arrow up or down to actually move things 8 pixel on your artboard. So let's quickly see. I already have this set up. You can as well set yours to what you want. You can set it to 4 because we're using the 4 baseline grid system. You can set yours to 8 or 4, but I'm going to set this to 8. So whatever you choose to do, we might change this if we'll find out it's not working for us. So we might change this along the line. So let me quickly turn on the grid system, and let me show you what that nudge amount we just set under the preferences does. So I'm going to select this element, and I'll use my arrow down, and you can notice that it's moving 1 pixel each. Then if I use the shift, let me set it to the baseline, which is this. If I use the shift, it snaps to the next two columns, the next two rows, sorry, because I've set the notch to 8. And remember what we set the row grid system to be. We set it to be 4. So if I use the shift again, I get the 8 spacing. So let me quickly set it back to 4, and let's see what we can do with the 4. So I'm just setting the big notch to be 4. And remember to use the big notch, you use your shift arrow. And let's see, it snaps to each of the grid system. Perfect. This is really awesome. It helps us to create, to be more fast while creating UI designs. So I advise you guys to set the notch, use the arrow without the shift to use the small notch, and use the shift to get to the bigger notch. So we can as well set the small notch to be 4 and the big notch to be 8, depending on what works for you and how your setup for your UI project is. So having turned this on, I'm going to start setting up the elements here. And remember in the last video, we set up the columns and I can see this is not really matching to the column, and the bike.io, we also need to snap it to the column. Perfect. And let's look at what we have here. Okay, this are also snapping very good and very awesome. So this is going out of the column. So I'm going to bring it back, and I think everything is perfect. So now, one of the importance of the baseline grid system, you can use it to create uniform items. So I'm going to turn off the grid system, and for example, I'm going to go down here and select the box. I can set this box the size, and I can create another box and set it to different size. So if you look at this size of this box, you can see that the height is 112 and that is 64, and this might not be proportional to this very one, but using the grid system, it helps you create sizes that are proportional to each other, and that makes the eyes very easy to glance through each of the elements in the design. So I'm going to turn on the grid system and see what we can do. So you can see as I'm resizing the height of this rectangle, they are actually snapping to the grid system. So this on the size on the property bar, we have 40, and if I should increase, I'm expecting to get 48, and if I increase the more, I'm getting if I increase for the first time, I'm getting 44, and if I increase again, I'm getting 48. So this way I can create elements with uniform proportional heights, like similar heights, like let's say on a range of 4, 8, 16 and thereabout. So that's one thing we can use the baseline grid system to do. So I'm quickly going to delete this, and for this hero section, I'm going to make sure that it snaps to the grid line, and perfect, it's on the grid line. And I'm going to check the bottom to also see that it snaps to the grid line, and this is perfect. This is awesome. It also snaps to the grid line. So I can as well increase this and make sure it snaps to each of the grid line of the baseline grid line, whatever you use. Sorry about that. So perfect, we have our hero sort out. Then for each of our text, you can see each of our texts are actually snapping to the grid line. So for example, if the grid line is not there, we can just use our eyes to actually just set things the way we want to set it. And this does not create a uniform space between this and this. So I'm going to turn on the grid line and snap this very well. Sorry, I'm going to select this and snap it to the grid line. Perfect. So that also applies to this. So we also snap this, and we want this and this to stay on the same grid line. So what you can do, you can use the ruler and like try to find out the grid line of the bike, of the navigations, the links on the navigation. So this is the grid line. And one interesting thing, you can see our content is also snapping perfect. So I'm going to take this bike now and bring it. So I'm using both the ruler and the grid line to actually do what I want to do. And this is awesome. So I'm going to delete the ruler, and that's perfect. So our bike in the about, everything is snapping. This is looking interesting. You can see everything looks clean and perfect. So that's one importance of our baseline grid system. So let's go down to this and also do some arrangement here. So I'm going to turn on the grid line, and I'm going to bring this up a little bit, and then make sure that it snaps to the grid line as well. And I'll also do that for the button, and also make sure that it snaps to the grid line. So perfect. This way you could check the space between this and this. You could use your Alt key or your Option key on Windows. You could see the spacing. You can see this is 64, and let's look at the spacing between this and this as well. You can see the spacings are, let's check. You can see that the spacing within each of them are uniform, like in a multiples of 4 or 8. They can easily be divided by 4 or 8. So that's the importance of that. So let's quickly snap this. I want this to start at the beginning of this, so I'm going to use the ruler to help me do that. So I'm going to take this and make it snap. Just snap this way, so it looks like, yeah, this is perfect. So using the column, also work on it and make sure everything's fine. So I'm going to turn off the grid line and we have this. So now if I snap one element on the grid line, I can move that element without dragging this way. I can use the nudge which I've set with Shift A. You can see it's snapping to each of it. So I can use that to actually move my element. So if I turn off the grid line, I can use that to actually move my element, and it will still snap to the grid line. So everything here is this can be divided by 4, and that is perfect. It can be divided by 8 or 4 or 16 or 32, multiples of 4 or 8. So that's really perfect. So you can also use the baseline grid system to actually add sizes. Like you've heard about what's called type and typography scale or type scale. So you can use the multiple of 8 also on this. So one thing I didn't talk about is let's look at this first before we talk about the type scale. So looking at this, we can see the line heights for each of these. Let me turn off the grid line system. So some of you might have challenges with the line heights, the space within each of the grid system. You can see they are not really snapping very well. You can see this one is snapping, the fitness is snapping, and the other line, which is the frame, is not snapping, and upright as well is not snapping. So what you can do is to set the line height to multiples of 8. So if I set it as 8, this is what you get ugly. So let's set it to 24. Oh, this is 244. What's wrong with this? Okay, this is 24. So one trick to setting line height is try to multiply your size of your font of your typeface by 1.5. I'm going to multiply that, and I'm going to do that on Figma as well. So I get 24. So what it means is like you can set your line height from 24 above. You can use 32. Just use your eyes to see what really works. So I use that trick a lot. That's one tip up in this video. So multiply your size of your font by 1.5 to get what your line height should start from. So with this, we have 24, which is perfect. It can be divided by 4 or 8. And let's try to snap this now on the grid line. And you can see each of them now are snapping on the grid line. Perfect. So we kind of create uniformity when it comes to arranging elements on our designs. So this is perfect. Each of them snapping to the grid line. And I'm going to turn off the grid line. I will have something like this. So if I make this 32, it's still going to look perfect. And check out what works for you. If this really works out for you, and that's perfect. So we can do that also on the type scale. This is 16. Try to use multiples of 8. So I can say 16 plus 8 to kind of create a hierarchy on this. So I'm going to multiply by 8. What's that? So multiply by 8. And we'll have 24, and then we can multiply by add 8. Sorry, I'm using multiplier, and we'll have 32. Good. So we can also use that as our type scale. You can see there's a what we call type scale hierarchy between this and this. This shows that this is needs more importance than this, and you can use. Remember, you can use your color as type scale. And you can use sizes as well as type scale to create hierarchy and importance. So we're going to talk about color some other time in this channel. So stick to this channel. Always turn off your notification and like this video if you think you are enjoying the video. If there any question you have about this, let me know in the comment section. So that's how you can use that to as well create kind of hierarchy visual hierarchy between your type scale. And we can also do that for this. We can increase this to 24. I think we can do that to 24, and we'll have a bigger size. Let's also check as you're increasing the size, also check the baseline grid system as well. So I'm going to turn it off. And I think this is perfect. You can use your shift to bring this down a little bit. And this is it. So you see there's a kind of uniformity that goes in with using the grid system. Normally this arrangement might be different from what we have, but you could see that everything is looking pretty nice, neatly arranged. And that's the importance of using grid system. So guys, I hope you guys like this video. And in the next video, I'm going to be talking about creating responsive grid system, how to create for mobile, how to create for iPad, and how to create for web. So make sure you stick to this channel. If you have not subscribed, subscribe, and make sure you turn off the notification bell. I'll be making at least one video every week. When I'm more strong, I will make 2 videos every week, one on Wednesdays and one on Fridays. When I'm not that strong, I'll make videos, at least 1 video every week. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you don't, let me know in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, also let me know in the comment section. If you have any question about baseline grid system, also let me know in the comment section. I love you guys. See you in the next video where I talk about responsive grid line system. Bye for now.